It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Melenani Waiʻalae. Melenani is a Kanaka attorney, mother, PhD student, and survivor of intimate partner violence. She presently works as a family law attorney at Greg Ryan and Associates, where she represents clients in family law matters that include paternity, divorce, child support, guardianship, adoption, and restraining orders. Melenani uses her knowledge and experience with intimate partner violence to assist survivors in navigating family law matters. Melenani credits her success and ability to persevere after intimate partner violence to her family, community, and education. She attended the University of Hawaii and received her BA with high honors and MA in Hawaiian Studies with a focus in nation building and Hawaiian history. She attended the William S. Richardson School of Law, where she also earned a Native Hawaiian law certificate and is versed in legal issues that are unique to Kanaka. Melenani is presently a PhD student in political science with a focus in public policy and indigenous politics, and is completing a graduate certificate in conflict resolution. Her dissertation research is on utilizing pu'uhonua to address social inequity amongst Kanaka, to include issues of family violence and systemic change. Melenani combines her professional and personal experiences as a Kanaka mother and survivor of intimate partner violence to initiate steps towards healing her ohana and lahui. Melenani.
Aloha pumehana kākou, mai kala hiki a kala kau. O Melenani Waiʻalae ko'u inoa, no Waiʻanae o ahu maiau, no hoʻau ma makakilo. He Kanaka Hawaii au, he makuahine au, he loio ohana au. Warm greetings to you all from sunrise to sunset. My name is Melenani Waiʻalae. My family is from Waiʻanae Oahu, and I presently reside in Makakilo. I am a Native Hawaiian mother, a family law attorney, and like many Hawaiian and Pacific Islander women, I wear many hats for my family and my community. As mentioned, I am a survivor of intimate partner violence, but I am also a survivor of poverty, settler colonialism, social inequity, gender inequity, and the near annihilation of my people, land, culture, and native language. I believe that these are all contributing factors to my struggle as a survivor of IPV and in working towards financial security. And I hope to show how it is critical for us as survivors, advocates, community members to confront the many intersections of domestic violence, as our conference organizers have identified in this year's conference theme of confronting domestic violence from the intersections. When I learned of this year's conference theme, I immediately agreed to speak on this topic and to share pieces of my journey towards financial stability and financial security, or independence, actually, after experiencing intimate partner violence. In many ways, my experience with intimate partner violence is linked to my lack of financial security at a young age. Many statistics provide that the age range that females most often experience IPV is around 18 to 24 years old. This is a time when most females are very young, still developing who they are, and have not generally obtained financial security. This is the age range that I was during my experience with IPV. I grew up in what is designated by Hawaii state assistance programs as low income. We received SNAP, welfare, Section 8, the HEAP, and basically every assistance program that my mother learned of. My mother worked hard and swallowed her pride to ensure that we would have our needs provided for as much as possible. Growing up, we didn't have a car, never had a computer, and experienced going without electricity and food from time to time. I carried the embarrassment of my financial circumstances my entire life. It is so deep-seated that it is easier for me to talk about being hit, strangled, or nearly ran over during my abusive relationship than it is for me to open up about my childhood and where I come from. My journey towards financial security has been a lifelong one. When I mention financial security, I am referring to the ability to provide for my family's basic necessities, and I'm not speaking of financial wealth. When I went through the abuse, I remember feeling the same childhood embarrassment and shame that I felt because of where I came from. Although I was a young adult now, I felt like that same dirty little girl that I saw myself as. Messy hair, mismatched clothes, no slippers, no school supplies, and often feeling the sting of hunger in my belly. What does this have to do with intimate partner violence? I'm an attorney now. I can afford to buy food for myself and my family, and so I should be over my past, right? I have learned that self-image, healing from traumatic experiences, and self-worth cannot be bought, and poor beliefs and practices in these areas are hard to break. Intergenerational trauma amongst Native peoples is very real, and we carry the weight of our circumstances and those of our kupuna or elders before us as we tread through a world in which we are expected to live outside of our innate selves as Natives, and to survive in a capitalistic society that is managed by our colonizers as they wrongfully possess, appropriate, commercialize, and destroy the places, people, and culture that we love and that we are. When I became an adult, I told myself that I would not go on any state assistance. I remember the stress that my mother went through when program evaluations took place once or twice a year, and how each program had its own taxing reevaluation process. I decided that I was going to work 2 to 3 jobs so that I would never relive those stressful and embarrassing circumstances. And I did. Of course, I also learned that it wasn't as easy as declaring it so, and hard work didn't always equate to an equal place or pay. My ex and I had children in our early 20s, lived on our own, and didn't have family members who were in a financial position to assist us. The stress of dealing with these circumstances and raising 2 little girls significantly affected our family dynamics. And 4 years into our relationship, my ex broke under the pressure and falsity that as a man, it was his job to provide for us financially. He then became physically abusive. And this is not to say that what he did was okay or to make excuses for his actions because of the circumstances. Rather, it is my personal and genuine reflection on some of the contributing factors that I feel comfortable speaking on. We had pushed ourselves in every way possible. When we had our first daughter at 20, he woke up at around 4 a.m. and I got up and went to drop him off to a coworker at 4:30 so that he could catch a ride to his job as a roofer. And then I drove with our baby, went home, rested, and got us ready so that we would leave Ewa Beach by 7 a.m. And we drove to Makaha, where my mother would watch my daughter while I went to school and then work. I drove in morning traffic from Makaha to UH Manoa. And if you don't know the island of Oahu, it can easily take over 2 hours during morning traffic to drive from Makaha to Manoa, with a bumper to bumper traffic most of the way. I finished school and then work at around 9:30 p.m. and drove from Manoa to Makaha to pick up our daughter and then back to Ewa Beach, getting home after 11 p.m. These were stressful times for both of us, and my ex had never gained the skills or support to cope with his own stress. As a Kanaka, he had experienced many traumas growing up and what I saw as feelings of inadequacies as a father and man due to our circumstances. I didn't know it then, but I could not be the one to help him heal from his own traumas. September 23rd, 2010. That was the first time he hit me. I remember the date because it was on my birthday and the year our first daughter turned 1. 2010 to 2011 was probably the most abusive period in our relationship. And during that time, he had also taken our money and was staying with a girl that he cheated with. We then had to move out of our home the following month because I could not afford our own place. Once again, I was hardly eating because I didn't have the money, but mostly out of heartache. I remember my dad pleading with me to take a bite from a French fry after I had not eaten for about 3 days. There was also a day when I didn't have the money to buy our daughter milk and cried because I had nothing to feed her but my tears. That is still probably one of the most hurtful days of my life. I mentioned this to my academic advisor when I went to her thinking I was going to drop out of graduate school. And she took me to the grocery store and bought formula for my daughter and a poke bowl and Arizona green tea for me. I'll always remember that meal because I was so hungry. mostly for love, and she showed me so much aloha that day. She also talked with me and offered to watch my daughter during a class that I did not have childcare for so that I didn't have to leave the graduate program. And as you can see today, I graduated with my master's in Hawaiian Studies prior to entering law school, largely because of her. Despite the difficulties we encountered, I was not ready to end the relationship that I had with their father, and we had a second child. It was not until my first year in law school and after nearly 9 years together that I finally decided I was done. When I decided I was done with the relationship, there were key factors in place that I believe contributed to me finally ending the relationship for good. I reached this point after I saw how the abusive relationship was affecting our girls and was able to realize a whole new world of possibilities before us while in law school. Key factors were childcare, financial assistance, affordable rent, a reliable vehicle, support for my school and work, and advocates. Childcare was necessary for me to go to work and school so that I could financially support us in the present and work towards a more sustainable career. Here in Hawaii, we have very minimal options for infant care, and all options are costly. At the time, I had an infant and a 3-year-old. Infant care was $1,150 a month, and toddler care was approximately $800 a month. Most of the childcare subsidies are geared towards preschool for kindergarten prep. And there were a couple programs that assisted with infant care, but the guidelines did not make practical sense for me. For example, Arbor Child Care Assistance from the state helped to pay a portion of childcare, but it was a portion for the time periods that I was actually sitting in class. Therefore, if my first class started at 9 and ended at 10, and my second from 12 to 2, the program would only pay for the 3 hours I actually sat in class and did not account for my commute or that I was in school from 9 to 2 as opposed to the 3 hours of class time. Additionally, childcare programs charge a monthly rate and do not piecemeal hours. Regardless of this, I took the assistance whenever I could get it, and I utilized the option to add childcare to my cost of attendance so that I could access student loans to cover the cost of childcare through financial aid. Graduate loans collect interest even while in school, and I was looking at a 7% interest rate for almost $2,000 a month or $20,000 an academic year in childcare costs alone. The university capped how much I could take out or to pay for childcare each month on guidelines that were also not practical, as I was only allowed to take out about $500 a month per child for childcare. Now, this is for a loan with a high interest rate. This is not free money. And I asked the financial aid department how they got that number because there's no infant care program on this island that is only $500 a month. And the response provided that it was some number that they came to without any actual research behind it. Thankfully, I kept my grades up and qualified for scholarships to cover my tuition and books so that I could optimize my loans to cover childcare, rent, and cost of living expenses, because law school also prohibited us from working more than 20 hours a week if we were attending full time. And this brings me to a second critical factor, financial aid or financial assistance. I had access to financial assistance through school and also applied for state assistance through welfare and SNAP. I constantly looked at flyers on campus, at state offices, or in program newsletters to learn more about different programs or grants that I qualified for. I applied to every program that I could. I also went to these programs, asked questions, and learned about additional programs. It was a $300 electrical assistance here or a one-time $500 school book assistance there that got me through each month. In addition to my jobs, I served in AmeriCorps and earned an education grant and small monthly stipend of about $400. And through AmeriCorps, I worked with Hawaiian Community Assets as a facilitator to financial literacy classes to local and Native Hawaiian low-income individuals and families, where I gained even more knowledge on community services and what the program coins as empowerment economics in the Native Hawaiian context. Of course, I had to swallow my pride and go back on my goal to avoid state assistance. Applying for and meeting the requirements of these programs were as time-consuming as a part-time job. While on welfare, I was required to prove that I participated in 20 work hours per week. As a full-time student, I could count my class hours towards this, and I was required, though, to get a signature from a law school professor to confirm that I attended each class every week. And in addition to that, I was also allowed to get a credit for each, 1 hour for each credit for the classes I attended each week. And this also required the signature of a law professor who was willing to verify that I completed these study hours each week. So once again, I felt like that poor little girl who had to jump through hoops and ask people for signatures to have the privilege to be in the same space as my peers. Another challenge was that some felt that due to my circumstances, I shouldn't continue law school or should take a break. In my second of 3 years of law school, my welfare worker told me that I should work to support my family as opposed to going to law school, and kind of made me feel guilty for doing this, like what seemed for myself. She tried to convince me to quit to work a full-time job for minimum wage when I had little over a year left in law school. Out of concern for my mental health and that of my children, a school counselor and professor also advised that I go on academic leave and return once things had settled. However, I knew that we would be far better off if I could just finish my law degree. I had faced these challenges before, and who knew when things would settle. My life has always carried such circumstances, and so I persisted. To be honest, it was quite difficult for me to put together this speech. I have shared my story as a survivor through public speeches before. I have also done another keynote on IPV. However, this one seemed to touch upon a lifelong struggle, of which I still cannot believe that I achieved. There were so many difficult moments that I wanted to speak of, and many that I have to keep to myself. Last year, I purchased a 4-bedroom, 2-bath townhome on my own. And this was not on a whim due to the low interest rates or popularity of buying a home. I had planned and worked towards this goal from when I was in law school. I applied for the Section 8 Housing 5-year Family Self-Sufficiency Program with the goal of purchasing a home upon completion. I worked through the program steps by completing required classes, meetings, and career and financial goals that I set with my FSS worker. In working with the program, I was able to save $20,000 during its 5-year span and use those funds along with additional savings towards a down payment on my home. I graduated from the program in December 2020 and closed on my home in April 2021. I felt very proud to sign my name where it said single female purchaser. And I know it's a struggle for many families in Hawaii to be able to do this, especially now. I was proud that I was able to do this in my name alone without a man, which I had once thought was impossible. I don't feel like I completely did this alone though. I don't think I could have accomplished this without the assistance I received from what felt like angels along the way. My ability to navigate financial resources and to be frugal came from struggle. I was able to do this for myself, to buy a home for that hungry little girl who always worried about her family circumstances, and for my girls who would never have such worries. From my humble beginnings to now, I cannot express what a relief it is to know that we will always have a home of our own. No more searching for rentals that will accept a Section 8 voucher, applying for aid, no more worrying that we can lose it all out of nowhere. It took everything for me to get here, and I still find it hard to celebrate the achievements because those painful parts are so vivid. Sometimes they're more real than my present or tangible successes. But I hope that my story can help to show that there is so much more to tackling intimate partner violence and to creating safe spaces for survivors to thrive, because we need to see a better future ahead when we are at our worst. Now that I am in a secure position, I can also be of service to help others, and that's added value to our society. During this conference, I invite you to listen to the various presenters and mana'o, or thoughts, that have a purposeful place in this year's conference, and to keep an open mind and heart when reflecting on the many intersections of domestic violence. I hope that you will use this to better understand IPV or to take it a step further and to assist in creating better pathways for survivors to heal and build a financial foundation of self-empowerment. With all this said, it is with great honor and appreciation that I welcome you all to the 9th Annual National Pacific Island Violence Prevention Conference, and allow us to start day one with our Women's Summit and theme of building a financial foundation of self-empowerment for Pasifika women. Mahalo.